This idea of talking about attainments, culturally, broadly speaking, is or has been quite taboo. You stirred up quite a bit of controversy when you published your book, Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha, the first edition, by assigning it the Arhat, Daniel Ingram, which is the highest of those four levels and said to be very rare, and one's not supposed to talk about those things and that sort of thing. And your approach is very pragmatic. Apply the technique, go through the stages of insight, achieve the perceptual shift or the path of attainment. Why do you think disclosure of attainments is so important?
So when I look back at the Pali Canon, not that everybody thinks everything in the Pali Canon is authentic, but there's an overwhelming trend for people to discuss attainments in the Pali Canon. And while you can find in the Code of Conduct for monks, or Vinaya or Vinaya, however people want to pronounce it, that it says that monks should not discuss this with non-monks, basically, and that you should never falsely claim an attainment. Those are considered big no-nos. That said, the Buddha was forever calling people out and saying this person had stream entry, this person had anagami, this was an arhat, this person has powers, this person is skilled at concentration, and he would forever, was constantly talking about himself. I am, the Tathagata, knower of worlds, tamer of gods and humans, arahat, with full mastery of the powers and knowledge of lives, and on and on and on. It's a long list, right? And this is a frequent occurrence. And then if you look later on, the first great Buddhist conference where they solidified a bunch of teachings and texts was specifically, attended by this many arhats who were all known to be arhats and claimed arhatship. And the Pali Canon was supposed to have been written by a whole bunch of arhats. And at the time they would say, this person's an arhat, that person's a whatever. You want to go learn this, you should study with them. This person's a stream entry, you can study this with them, blah, blah. And that was all very straightforward and functional. And you got the sense it was much more of like a guild or like a craft, a trade, like not a trade that's so minimizing of something so much more profound, but it had some of that functional quality to it, like a guild would have, right? That there are journeyman craftsmen and there are itinerant, intermediate, apprentice craftsmen and there are, master craftsmen. And it had that same feel as far as I can tell. And then you find these stages, again, talked about in the commentaries. And then you find things like the Vimudimagga, which preceded the Visuddhimagga, which is the famous manual of Buddhist meditation practice in the Theravadan lineage. Being signed the Arhat Upatissa, and you find, I think, the Burmese, some scholars are going to correct me probably, but one of the copies of the Visuddhimagga signed by the Anagami Buddhaghosa, and they were explicit about these things. This is my qualification to write this thing. And I had plenty of teachers who, while not using the explicit word arhat, would sometimes even use the word and just say, don't use it. Or they would do things like, say the criteria for their attainment, which was the criteria for arhatship. And there were quite a number of those teachers, Ty Forrest, Burmese, some others, and they would specifically say things that directly let you know they had various attainments. They just wouldn't use those words. And I'm like, why? It's sort of like the whole Voldemort thing. Oh, we don't say his name. Yeah, but everybody knows who you're talking about to say Voldemort. Like, come on. In the same way, like, come on. Just if you're saying arhat by every word except using the word arhat or anagami or whatever. And one of my teachers was talking about how they really liked attaining Nirodha Samapatti. Well, you're explicitly, you're at least an anagami, if not an arhat, if you're attaining that. That's a claim to an attainment, a direct one. And so this taboo it's not really what we think it is, and functionally we see all the time in Thai countries, so this person was an arhat, or this person has this attainment. Or even Mahasi Sayadaw, Practical Insight Meditation, is signed, Aha Magga Pandita. That means seriously scholastic arhat, master meditator person. That's what it means, right? It's a specific label that means all that, and it just doesn't happen to be the word arhat, but it's that claim. And I had numerous teachers claim to me their status, and I found that incredibly helpful. I was like, oh, good, I'm studying with a real person who can really tell me how to do this, and they know what they're talking about, and they're comfortable talking about it. I just find that incredibly empowering and straightforward and non-neurotic. I find all the sort of weird kind of linguistic, backroom talk, gamey hints and stuff like come on, like just talk about the thing that this is all about. This is what we're doing here, and let's just say we've done it and do it and figure out how to tell other people how to do it. I don't like all the games. And so that's the take I took on it. I'm sort of a pragmatic, semi-iconoclastic, but in some ways very traditional Westerner. And I think it's actually restoring something that I think was original in traditional Buddhism, and that you even see in lots of other traditions, right? I mean, they explicitly say who the patriarchs of Zen are, and that means they have very specific attainments and realizations. They explicitly tell stories about them that very specifically say these are the attainments and realizations they had. This is unambiguous. In the Tibetan tradition, there are certain hats and certain titles and certain things you just don't get if you're not realized, right? And they will say this person is a realizer, this person is a, whatever labels they want to put on it. And they do that too. And so the notion that this was somehow like not happening and I'm some like far outlier, it's just not true. It's one small step that people kind of freaked out about. Okay, fine, but really, anyway, let's grow up a little bit.